All right, guys, I have John and Nicole here with me. They've obviously bought a property with us recently, and we're actually under contract on another one as well, but we're doing a bit of a property breakdown with them. But thanks for jumping on, guys. All right, so today we're just going to go through your property like piece by piece and kind of go over like what we liked about it, what are the risks are, and just give a bit of kind of awareness to the people watching the video of like how complicated commercial can get. And you guys have bought a retail in Perth. And retail is probably the most complicated. Like industrial, it's basically 3 concrete tilt-up panels and a roller door, and you can look at like square meter rates in the same complex, the adjoining complexes, and it's a bit more of a just a numbers decision. And the same thing for office space, but retail's all to do with like foot traffic and road traffic. So why did you use Palise Property, or why did you use a buyer's agent in the first place?
I picked up your book, actually the residential book that you've got, and then happened to come across the commercial one after that and read that second, and so then just reached out to you and said, hey, does it fit with what we want to do, and sort of went from there. But generally we had a lot of confidence in what I'd seen specifically in either social media or reading the book, and felt quite confident that you guys knew what you're talking about. So went and had a look at a couple of different properties before we landed on this one, and we went pretty much the whole way with one of them before that, and ended up not going with that one. But that process, even before we actually signed up to buying one, gave us a whole heap of confidence that whatever was going to be right or wrong with the property, we thought we'd find that out during the due diligence process. And certainly when we landed on this one, we definitely experienced that.
It's actually, I don't get many people that actually have read the resi first, because I wrote the commercial one because the resi market's saturated. There's 1,000 bloody books out there already. So I wrote the commercial one because there wasn't a commercial book. But then the reason I had to write, I didn't want to write another book because it's a pain in the bum process. You're up every single night for 4 hours writing it. But I started getting known as the commercial guy, which is fine. But I love resi. Like resi's good for foundation portfolios to grow up. I'll tell you if resi's right for you, but commercial's right if you're trying to build a passive income reasonably quickly, and we'll go through that today. Commercial is a game changer, but there are risks as well, which we'll go over as well. All right, so let's jump into it and we'll have a look at your property. All right, so this is the property we've got. So we actually bought in Fremantle, WA. I've actually been there many times because I used to be a mining engineer designing mine sites. I've been over to Perth 30 plus times. Fremantle's a really cool buzzing area. So the main risk with retail is normally vacancy periods are quite long. So it'd be like, the benefit is basically the tenant will stay there for the life of their business. So if they do really well, they stay there forever. If they close up shop, you'll typically have like a 6 to 18 month vacancy in a good spot. So we kind of want to mitigate that. So this is on the main street. It's actually a rum and coffee bar, I think from memory, which is a bit of a weird mix, but the location is what sold me on it. So it's got all the usual macro stuff I like good 6-year lease on it. The tenant wants to stay on. It was actually occurring because of a divorce, which I actually get asked that quite a lot. People say, oh, why is the owner selling? And I normally say, why do you care? Because the agent's never going to give us a good reason like, oh yeah, they're selling because it's riddled with termites. Like they always just make up an excuse anyway. But that's probably the most common one you actually hear. It's like 50% of marriages end in divorce and they've got assets. And I've personally been through a divorce and my portfolio through that period changed quite a lot as well. So that's the main reason. The other one is normally older people. They're kind of moving their assets on or selling it to give money to their kids, etc., or developers want to kind of redeploy funds. But main thing I like about this one is the foot traffic of the area and how buzzing the area is. You actually guys visited it a few weeks ago, didn't you, to have a look at what it was going? How did that go?
Yeah, I went there for work for something different, and just went and had a look and just thought I'd see it for myself. And interestingly, I went on a Wednesday. It was packed with people, which was really strange. Thought, it'd be busy on the weekends and maybe not too much during the week.
Yeah, cool. So we'll go to the map and actually show you guys. So Fremantle actually is a really cool up and coming areas. One of my little tricks, so if people watching this, follow the breweries. So that's my little trick for people if you're buying retail, because people only open up new breweries, and when lots of them open up, they don't keep opening up if they're all failing in the area. So they have to be doing well. And I actually mentioned prior to this call, Little Creatures is an awesome brewery. Like you go there, I've actually used to go there on weeknights as well, and it'd be absolutely gangbusters going on. But we're on the main street here, half hour from Perth CBD, but this is its own little kind of cool lifestyle area where people actually go out in Perth. So really good spot. I'll show you the actual street view. So this is the nice clean street you're talking about here. there's barely any vacancies at any one time. I think when we did it at the time, there was only one vacancy on the whole strip. And I think when we looked at for properties for sale, there's only one even retail in the whole area of Fremantle for sale. So it's a really tight area, but I like corner blocks for retail. And I've mentioned you to this before as well. I normally don't like pubs and like places of alcohol, not because I don't like alcohol. I do love a drink. But normally when they close down, they're hard to make money and they're kind of fairly one-dimensional if they're like a freestanding pub. So even though this has got a liquor license, if you ever lose this, like this is perfect location for cafe. Cafe owners love the corner block. And I know when I'm looking for a cafe, you always notice the corner block because there's people buzzing around the corner. But you can just see like it's a really nice street. Actually a heritage building as well, which so part of the DD is we look really closely into that. That's normally a negative because you're like, oh, there's big maintenance costs and that. But that's actually what gives this street the character and why you can't actually have overpopulation of like retail strips and things like that. They're kind of locked into what it is. They can't build up and do all that. So it's going to keep that kind of nuance of the retail strip. But yeah, it's just a really cool spot in the street. Plenty going on. Universities, they're actually building a new port, like a new container port there, so that's going to bring even more. But you can just see on the map how much kind of versatility is around. So yeah, I really like this area. And even though retail normally comes with high risk, this one is pretty low risk in the grand scheme of things, and we'll go through that in the DD report. But just in terms of the write-up, I think when you guys signed on, you were originally thinking industrial, but what kind of put it over the line with this one? Was it the length of the lease or was it just a decent yield? Because we did get up getting about a 6% yield on this one.
Yeah, I think it was both. Yeah, we looked at some others beforehand and just wasn't quite right. This one had a good lease. We actually liked the tenant. I mean, we know a couple of people over in Perth as well. And before we jumped on, we obviously went and asked some people around the area whether they'd heard of it, whether they liked the tenant in place. And I think we had 100% strike rate of everyone had heard of it and everyone said that it was quite a cool business. That in itself was a good sign, but yeah, the numbers as well in terms of the location and the yield and the length of the lease it all just seemed to work for us.
Yeah, this one like ticked all the retail boxes. The negative normally is like I said, the heritage listing and things like that, but I actually added it to in this one, and we'll go through on the D report when we look at that stuff. But we'll have a quick look at the cash flow just so people get an idea. So we end up getting this for 1.5 million on I think it was about a 5.94% yield, so around 6%. And then basically we give you the cash flow on interest-only loans up to different interest rates. Interest rates are high at the moment, even though the 30 average is around 5%. So I always look at that. But even at the high interest rates, the property pays for itself. And a lot of investors will go, oh, look, why do I want an asset that like barely like gives you a cash flow? And I'll show you that in a sec. But you compare like a 1.5 mil residential to this. Residential is like 40 grand a year negative. So this is 40 grand in front. The resi has to grow at 40 a year just to remain on par with it. But this is the real interesting part of commercial. So we ran through these numbers quickly before, but I'll kind of go through it now for the people watching. So 1.5 mil purchase price. You guys had a 30% deposit on this one. So you're effectively borrowing $1 million and 50 grand. Stamp duty is around 50, 60 grand. Purchasing costs, I have something stuffed there. Let's ignore that one. The acquisition costs around 500 grand for the deposit. And net yield, I've actually done, let's just go at 5.94. There we go. So it's around at 5. Rental increases, I've just done 7% because that's kind of what we've seen the last few years. The average is about 5, but it normally comes in like a cyclic wave of like 10 to 15%, and then it drops down to 5. But you got a 5-year lease, so you'll kind of know it. But I actually ignore the rental increases for lease. Like it's a short-term gain. I get a lot of people go, oh, I must have 5% rental increases. It doesn't matter. Like I can tell you, as someone who owns like retail properties, if the tenant's struggling and it's not going up with fair market rent, they're going to complain and bring it back to fair market rent anyway. 1.5 mil purchase, 6% yield. If you put the cash flow back into the actual debt, you can actually pay off in this market around 12, 13 years. And then after that, you've effectively got almost a 200K passive income. And I know these numbers can change. If I change this to 5, it kind of goes for a bit longer. If I make it 10%, it's a bit shorter. Same thing for the interest rates. But then I always encourage, if you've got spare cash, put it into your commercial, because let's say 15,000. Cool, we can get it down to like 10, 11 years if we add a bit of extra cash flow to it. But that for me is like the power of commercial. Like trying to get a 200K passive income with resi, you need about an 8 to 12 mil portfolio over 20, 30 years, whereas this is quite strong that way. So I just want to show that. This also works if you're buying, say, self-managed super fund, and then your extra repayments aren't zero. They're actually, like, say you're on 150 grand a year and it's 11%. That's effectively that 15 grand we're talking about per year. And then that's where, cool, at retirement, if I buy a couple of these, I'm going to have a 400 grand passive income. Like, it is quite interesting. And like I said, we can change these numbers. Like if I go, well, look, I actually got 8%. It's a bit slower. If we go 5%, it's a bit longer. So the main thing is putting a dent in the actual debt at the start is the big one, because you can see as it goes down, the debt reduces. The debt reduces quite quickly there. All right, so there's that. What I want to point out as well is commercial's not easy. It's not like resi where you check flood zones, easements, housing commission checks, stuff like that. This is what we have to give you guys to make sure it's a good property. Do a credit history check on the tenant, identity check, look at their evidence of assets, because that's if they've got like a bank guarantee or a personal guarantee. Then do a bit of a business analysis as well. So that's not as critical on, say, a warehouse, but really critical on kind of retail, because the tenant is the main value of the property. So you go through all that. And then so you do like a lease review and obviously check everything against that. And then look at like fit out and make good clauses and the insurances, the outgoings. I won't go on forever, but you can see there's actually quite a lot to it. And this is not even including building and pest inspection. So there's quite a lot to it. And then we compile that up into a report for you. And we let you know if there's any red flags. So the red flags are normally stuff like, oh, there's not a grease trap, or they don't have their lease approved by council. And we obviously hold your hand through that. This one came actually pretty good from memory. There wasn't too much for it. There was a few documents when we sent it to you that we're still waiting for like lease review and that, which we ended up getting, I believe. So like lease, I think we got the lease review in the end of it. Yeah, we did the lease review. So that's good there. And you can just go through. And then all that stuff I just kind of rambled about, we'll kind of look at, cross-check, look at the growth factors. Not sure if there's anything in particular you guys want me to show here, but like it's a grunt work. It's not like just this report takes about 20 to 40 hours collectively. And we've got like a due diligence expert, a valuer, and an assistant all doing this report for you guys. So there is a good grunt work. So that's without selling the services. Like that's probably the point of a buyer's agent is, one, we save you time looking for the property. Two, I like to call this a bit of an insurance policy to make sure you don't make a mistake. So we go through everything, cross-check. If we define a red flag, we just tell you to crash it. So even looking at stuff like their insurances and make sure they're insured for the right amount, and that's part of it. We introduce you to insurance. We obviously interview the tenant as well. So we do a bit of a stalk online. You can see that a lot of reviews, good reviews, fair few followers. And then we interview the tenant as well. And we give them basically transcribe the conversation to make sure, they're happy to stay on. They've mentioned that, it's a nice corner, we block as well. I've said to you guys, I wouldn't go out and buy 5 retails. Now that you got the one, like I said, we're under contract and a warehouse, and we'd kind of diversify the asset type and then keep diversifying the location after that and keep going. But it's going to come down to your kind of goals and personal, what you're trying to go after. And there's the please don't sue me clause. And then that's pretty much it. So let me just stop doing that. Yeah, so really, really cool property, good spot, good location, corner block, versatile premises, stupidly long lease, decent yield. So kind of ticked all the boxes for me. But yeah, what's your plans, guys, moving forward? Like we've got the other one under contract. Are you guys going to be done after that? Or are you going to keep kind of moving? Or is it going to be a bit of a pay down strategy?
I think we'll probably go the pay down strategy for a while after that. As you were running through the numbers before for what if that was a super SMSF, which is exactly what our next property is going to be and what that looks like at the end. You're talking about 12, 13 year horizon there to have some pretty decent passive income, and that changes our lives in terms of what we need to do work-wise. And so that's the immediate goal and focus, is getting that future locked in. And then depending what happens cash flow wise for us in that time, we may get another one, we may not. But I think that, we'll sort of focus on paying down for now. Yeah.
What actually happens is your risk reduces the less debt you have, because obviously if they all become 50% LVR and one of them goes vacant for a year, the other one's propping it up. And that's personally what I actually do. Like I actually paid off one of my commercials, which is the highest risk one. So that's because I know if I lose a tenant, it's going to be vacant for a couple of years. So I don't have to worry about it. The other ones are kind of looking after themselves, and they're the ones I leverage. And we'll go through that as we kind of time goes on. But you've also going a warehouse in a self-managed super fund. I actually say it's probably a lower risk strategy, and what I generally recommend, not financial advice, but just because the vacancy rates are much shorter. Like the one you bought's 1 to 3 months as a worst case. Whereas I mentioned on this one, more likely like a 3 month to kind of 12 to 18 month, depending on what it is. Depends on who the tenant is. we're in a kind of a hustling, bustling area, so it might actually be 1 to 3 months. And that's probably what I want to talk about as well is I can choose comparable properties for retail like this. And we went through like 4 or 5 of them and spoke to some property managers, and most of the property managers said, oh yeah, 1 to 5 months is kind of it. But then you'll find that one, say at the end of the street, that sat there vacant for 18 months. And then you go, well, was that sitting there vacant because they were asking too high a rent? Or was it because it's at the end of the strip away from the foot traffic? And then that can scare people off as well. So it's trying to get the balance right. And I always just take the conservative side and say, hey guys, look, this could be vacant for 12 months, but you're going to get another 10-year tenant. And then so just kind of plan those buffers from there. But no, it's really, really cool property, guys. And I'm really glad you jumped on and shared all this information with people. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and looking forward to getting the next one kind of unconditional.